There is a quiet flame burning within every human being. It does not clamor, it does not demand, yet it is the sacred essence where man meets the infinite. The challenge is that not everyone knows how to keep this flame steadfast and bright. Life can sweep you into fear, delay, resentment, or crises that shake the very ground of your faith. But if you learn to nourish the flame with the pure oil of attention, of forgiveness, of the daily rhythm of loyalty, you will see it become a light that guides not only your own path, but also those around you. This is not the journey of fleeting emotion, but the journey of presence, of gentle discipline, and of a life crystallized in light, the inner flame. Asterisk, asterisk. Within every human being there is a silent flame, a sacred essence where the individual meets the infinite, and faith is nothing more than the care and remembrance of this light. Deep within the soul there burns a flame. It does not shout, it does not seek attention. It simply bears witness in quiet strength. It burns despite the noise around you, despite the stories you tell yourself, despite the labels society may attach to you. It is the purest part of your being, the place where the finite self meets the boundless life, where humanity and divinity are joined. Faith is not the effort to create this light, but the gentle tending of it, like a gardener returning to water a root that was already planted in the soil. The image of the inner flame reminds us that the sacred essence is never lost, only hidden by the smoke of anxiety, ambition, and scattered memories. You may pass through winters of loneliness, through disappointment, even moments where you feel abandoned. Yet if you pause and listen, you will find that the flame has never gone out. It may seem small, but it is more enduring than any storm. What the world calls faith is simply the returning to this flame, guarding it against being swallowed in the darkness of forgetfulness. This flame cannot be sustained by borrowed knowledge or complex ritual. It is nourished by pure attention, by honest choices, by being true to yourself. You do not need to memorize hundreds of principles or seek distant mountains. You only need to return to your own stillness. Faith begins there, in the recognition that a radiant center is already within you, and that every spiritual practice exists only to keep the flame burning bright. If you look closely, you will see that all suffering begins the moment you stray from this flame, when you identify yourself with outer roles, when you measure your worth by the approval of others. You are moving away from the source of light. Yet even when you wander, the flame patiently waits for your return. No darkness can extinguish it. At most it is veiled, as the sun is hidden behind heavy clouds, but it has never disappeared. Tending the inner flame does not mean withdrawing from life. On the contrary, it demands that you live more deeply, more truly, in every moment. When you speak a kind word in difficulty, you pour oil upon the flame. When you choose silence over retaliation, you protect it from fierce winds. When you hold the good even amidst turmoil, you allow it to burn more brightly within you. This flame is like a hidden spring. Even if the land above seems parched, the waters flow beneath. But unless you know how to dig the well, you may thirst in the field. Faith is the unwearied act of digging again and again until you reach the pure waters beneath the surface of daily cares. The more patiently you tend it, the more radiant the flame becomes, guiding every deed. The wonder of this flame is that it never clamors for attention. It speaks only in whispers, sometimes as restlessness, sometimes as emptiness amid success, sometimes as a faint call that there is something higher than the pursuits that consume your days. If you listen and turn back, you will find it does not ask you to abandon all things, but only to live in the truth that you are more than appearances. In daily life, many turn to faith only as a remedy for crisis. They pray in sickness, they seek light in despair. Yet faith is not a rope to cling to in the storm. Faith is the flame already within. It is the compass even under clear skies. It is the warmth even when no fire is needed. If you seek it only in hardship, you miss the quiet beauty of dwelling in it every day. Some may ask how one can know this flame is real. The answer is simple. If it were not, you would not be here. Your life itself is the proof. Every heartbeat, every breath is evidence of a power greater than the small mind. You need no outward proof. Your existence is the testimony. The inner flame is like an immortal seed. It may rest beneath barren soil, yet at the slightest care it rises again. Many spend their whole lives searching for meaning. While that meaning lies within them, faith is remembrance, not addition. You need no further reason beyond the courage to believe that the flame within you is real, and your only task is to tend it. If today you feel lost, if life seems like an empty vessel, remember that the flame still burns within you. It has never departed. Your work is simply to sit still, to return, to see it again. Then you will discover that faith is not about summoning miracles from without, but about guarding the light within. And as you guard it, you will see the world begin to change, not because the world has altered, but because your light is strong enough to illumine all things. The inner flame is the one enduring truth. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be destroyed. It can only be forgotten. Each time you remember it, each time you choose to live by its light, you step closer to your true essence, where there is no fear, no lack, only clarity and peace. The daily oil for the flame, asterisk, asterisk, faith, is the oil that keeps life burning, and it must be poured each day through your attention, your words, your attitudes, your decisions, and even the silent commentary of your own mind. The flame within you cannot burn without oil, and that oil is faith poured into it day by day. Many believe that one prayer, one meditation, one reading of a book is enough to sustain the spirit. But the truth is otherwise. Just as a lamp requires oil to keep shining, the soul requires you to pour into it through small acts, repeated choices, steady and consistent. Faith is not a fleeting thrill. It is the slow and steady stream of oil flowing drop by drop in every thought you choose to nourish, in every word that leaves your lips, in every attitude you carry into the daily walk of life. When you speak a kind word to another, you have poured a drop of oil. When you remain calm instead of reacting impulsively, you have added brightness to the flame within. When you choose forgiveness over resentment, you have opened wide the channel through which the oil flows and the light spreads, even in silence. When you bring your attention back to a simple affirmation, reminding yourself that divine life is flowing through you. Now, that too is the act of pouring oil. The important thing is that the oil must not be poured once and forgotten, but continuously. How many of us have felt sudden surges of inspiration, only to feel dry and empty just days later? It is not that the flame has vanished. It is that we have forgotten to add oil. And oil is not poured only in the prayer room or the morning stillness. It is poured in the small moments of daily life. While you wait for a bus, while you sit at your desk, while you face pressure, while you converse silently with yourself in your own thoughts. True faith is tested, not when you feel peaceful, but when the world around you is noisy and restless. Do you still remember to pour oil in moments of busyness, in moments of worry, in moments of disappointment? Do you still remember to tend the flame with calm attitudes, with kind words, with honest decisions, even when no one is watching? Let me ask you something. Right now, in this moment, as you listen to these words, are you aware of the flame within you? Can you stop, even for a single second, and turn inward to see that quiet presence? If you can, you have just poured another drop of oil for today. And if you have not, then now is the perfect moment to begin. Oil does not come from outside. No one else can pour it for you. Others may inspire, others may remind, but the final act is always in your hands. You are the one who must choose where to place your thoughts, what to hold in your heart, what words to release into the world. Faith does not grow of itself. It increases through intentional care, and if you are patient, giving it a little each day, you will find your flame burning steadily, no longer swayed by circumstances. When you pour oil, you do not do it for praise. You do not pour oil to prove yourself righteous or exalted before others. You pour oil to remember who you are, to keep the light from going out within, to have a lamp that guides you through the darkest night. Just as the body needs water every day, the soul needs oil every day, not because it is weak, but because this is the law of life. If you neglect it, the flame will fade. If you care for it, it will shine more brightly, and in that light, you will not only see yourself clearly, but you will also become a beacon for others, even when you make no effort to be so. So today, as you hear these words, I want to offer you gratitude. Thank you for taking the time to tend the flame within you. For every moment you pause to nourish it, you make this world a little brighter. And ask yourself, have you poured oil for your flame today? If not, begin now. No ritual is needed, only a small choice, a new attitude, a pure thought. The flame is always there, and the oil is always waiting for you to pour. Faith is not a feeling. Asterisk, asterisk, faith is the spiritual substance, the law of creation, not dependent upon moods, but rooted in the inner climate of the mind. Faith is not a passing emotion, nor is it a sudden burst of excitement, as many imagine. Emotions rise like waves and fall like tides, fervent today and cold tomorrow. If you build your life upon emotions, you will be carried away by the shifting winds of mood. But faith is different. It is a spiritual essence, a durable substance of the mind. It does not come and go like feelings. It is the climate, the atmosphere that surrounds and governs all your thoughts and decisions. When you live in faith, you are not dependent upon whether you feel inspired today or not. You can walk in light even when your heart is heavy. This is because faith does not require sensation to exist. It is the law of creation, the channel through which every form of life is brought forth. Look at a seed planted in the earth. You do not see fruit immediately, yet you trust the sprout will come, because it is the law. Faith operates in the same way. It is an unchanging law, unmoved by your temporary moods. There are days when you sit in silence and feel no spark of inspiration, but if you remain still, if you keep your thoughts pure, you are practicing faith. It is that steadfastness in barren seasons that builds true strength. For if faith only thrives on bright days, it is not faith at all, but merely emotion dressed in spiritual clothing. True faith is the power to stand when clouds gather, the strength to go on when the path is empty, the resolve to maintain your affirmation, though no outward result appears. The essence of faith is inner certainty. It does not rest on external proof, but upon the divine law already established. When you affirm that all things are working together for your highest good, you do not say it to console yourself. You say it because you know it is true in the unseen realm. The material world is but the slow reflection of the inner climate you sustain. If that climate is filled with fear and doubt, the results will reflect unrest. If that climate is saturated with assurance and peace, the fruits will blossom accordingly. Those who live by faith do not let their moods define their identity. They understand that sadness, anxiety, excitement, or joy are passing winds, but the climate within is what determines the harvest of life, and that climate is shaped not by emotion, but by conscious choice of thought. Each thought is a drop of oil, each affirmation a step of reinforcement, each refusal of a negative idea and return to truth an act of cultivation for the inner atmosphere. Faith, therefore, does not need to be felt to be real. It is the foundation upon which feelings may rise and fall, yet the ground itself remains unmoved. As the earth stands firm beneath your feet while storms rage above, so faith is the solid ground upon which you walk. When you grasp this, you cease measuring your spiritual growth by how you feel and begin to measure it by the steadiness you maintain on days without supportive emotions. Perhaps you have known moments when your mind was full of doubt, your body weary, your spirit dull. Yet somehow you rose, you did what was required, you held a right attitude. That was faith in action. It is not loud, it does not glitter, but it is real and enduring. It does not depend on instant encouragement, but anchors itself in the eternal truth that you are never separated from the source of life. Once you understand that faith is the law of creation, you stop chasing emotional highs and begin sowing yourself into steady practice. You do not wait to feel excited before you pray. You do not wait to feel serene before you meditate. You do not wait for motivation before you do what is right. You act because that is how the flame is sustained, and it is this persistence that stabilizes the inner climate, enabling you to create a life of peace regardless of circumstance. Faith is not a cloak you wear at festival hours and put away afterward. It is the very air you breathe, the invisible field surrounding every thought, the current that nourishes every decision. If you maintain that atmosphere, even without special feelings in your heart, you are living in faith. And when that atmosphere grows strong, the whole world will reflect it as a mirror reflects the face of the one who gazes into it. Faith is substance. It is enduring climate, not fleeting sensation. When you begin to live with this awareness, you cease worrying whether you feel close to God, because you know He has never left. The only task is to keep the climate of your mind pure, steady, and filled with certainty. And in that atmosphere, every good seed will surely grow by the unfailing law of life, practice over inspiration. Asterisk, asterisk. Spiritual strength does not grow out of brief impulses or fleeting bursts of enthusiasm. It grows out of small, quiet, repeated choices until they become second nature. A kind word spoken in irritation, a moment of restraint when retaliation would be easy, a decision to walk away from gossip, or simply calling your mind back to a simple truth. When it begins to wander, these are the bricks that build the solid foundation of inner power. No one becomes steadfast through one heroic moment, but anyone can grow strong through thousands of simple, faithful choices. Inspiration can light you up for a moment, but unless you turn it into practice, that light will vanish like a match in the wind. Practice means doing it again and again, without flourish, without applause, simply with constancy. A person who keeps his mind clean a little more each day, who chooses calm once more, who repeats his affirmation once more, will gradually find his soul steady and unshakable. Real transformation always happens in silence. unseen by others, but it is precisely there that the flame is fed most strongly. Think about it. Is it not true that your weakest moments often come when you neglect the small things? When you let idle chatter consume your hours? When you let complaint become habit? When you tell yourself that a little indulgence does not matter, yet it is those little indulgences that slowly drain the oil and dim the flame. On the other hand, if you remain faithful in the small things, you will be astonished by the stability it creates. For the universe always measures truth by consistency, not by scale. Every time you choose kindness over cruelty, you are strengthening your spirit. Every time you choose silence instead of gossip, you are adding oil to the flame. Every time you refuse to let your mind sink into doubt, you are proving faith in action. And when these small acts accumulate, they form an inner strength nothing can erase. This is the secret of true growth, not outward explosions, but inward endurance. Remember, you do not need to be perfect to begin. You only need to be faithful to one small step today. If today you choose to hold one affirmation in your heart all day long, that is practice. If today you choose to forgive one small fault of another, that too is practice. Each step is a drop of oil added to the lamp, and slowly the light will shine brighter than ever before. Let me pause to ask you something serious. Are you ready to change? Are you ready to begin with small, repeated, faithful choices instead of waiting for some great push from outside? If you are ready, write in the comments, I am ready to change, or even just type the number 1 so I know you are truly present and listening on this journey with me. Thank you for giving your time. Thank you for allowing yourself to become good soil for the seed of truth to be planted. What you do today, even if small, will echo into tomorrow. And step by step, choice by choice, affirmation by affirmation, you will gradually shape a new life, steady, clear, and radiant with light. The power of attention. Asterisk, asterisk, wherever you place your attention. There you cast your vote for what you believe, and turning inward in the midst of daily life is how you fan the flame. Attention is the underground river that nourishes every experience. Wherever you direct it, that place becomes the soil where seeds are sown, and those seeds will grow into reality. Each moment you set your gaze upon something, you have cast a vote for what you believe. When the mind is fixed upon lack, upon old wounds, or upon the noise of the world, the flame within you flickers. Its light grows dim, not because it is gone, but because you have withdrawn oil from it to fuel the illusions outside. Yet in a single moment of turning inward, the flame glows again, waiting for your attention like the earth waits for rain. Some think attention is passive observation, but in truth, it is the most powerful creative act you possess. The thoughts you repeat, the stories you dwell upon, the fears you feed all are the direct result of where attention is placed. Look back upon a single day, and you will see how often the mind is drawn into trivialities, anxious news, useless conversations. Each time you have cast votes for confusion and unrest, and when enough votes are cast, they shape the climate of the mind, which governs emotion, and finally, reality itself. The power of attention is like a spotlight. If you shine it upon the dark corner, then darkness becomes the center. If you shine it upon truth, the light is magnified. The inner flame does not blaze through struggle, but through right direction. When you return inward in the busy streets, in the chaos of work, in grief, or even in tragedy, if you only remember that life is still flowing through you, you have added oil to the flame. Attention is breath, the oxygen of the light within. A mind that learns to guide attention is like a steady hand upon the reins. The horse may bolt, the wind may blow, yet the hand holds steady, keeping the course, refusing to be swept away. Each time you refuse to let the mind wander into doubt, you are holding the reins. Each time you choose to think of the good instead of sinking into judgment, you are turning the light back toward the center, and in these simple moments, the flame burns strong again. Some ask why their flame is weak, though they have prayed many times. The answer does not lie in how many prayers you have spoken, but in where your mind turns after the prayer. If you pray and immediately return to thoughts of failure, fear, and doubt, you have voted against your own words. Faith does not operate by the number of times you repeat a prayer, but by the fidelity of your attention. In life, you cannot avoid distractions, noise, information, gossip. Setbacks, they are winds that blow against the flame. But the true power lies in what you choose to look at. In the wind, you may shield and protect the light, or you may let it be. And that choice is always made in silence, in the mind, unseen by anyone but you. This is why two people may face the same circumstance but reap different results. One directs attention toward lack and injustice and reaps bitterness. The other directs attention toward the truth that life remains. That opportunity and light still exist, and so he walks in peace. The circumstance did not change, but the inner lamp was adjusted. Think of attention as the oil that flows into the lamp. Each time you think positively, honestly, kindly, you add pure oil. Each time you let yourself sink into envy, judgment, anxiety, you pour impure oil. The flame reflects exactly the quality of oil it receives. Therefore, if you would have the flame blaze bright, refine your attention. Do not let it flow toward what dims the light. When you learn to hold attention, even in small moments, you will find the flame's strength firm and steady. Even if a day is crowded with trials, you can return. Close your eyes for a second. Remember that life is flowing within you, and the light appears once more. This is no distant miracle, but the natural law of spirit. Attention is the ballot you cast for the future. Every thought is a doorway, and whether you step into darkness or light begins with attention, and when you choose to turn inward, to remember the flame in the midst of daily life, you are voting for the triumph of light. You need not wait for a great event. A single second of pure attention adds oil to the flame, and your life rises to a new measure of strength, fear, and how to withdraw oil from it. Asterisk. Asterisk fear arises from the illusion of separation. It has no creative power, and it weakens the moment you reclaim your attention through breath, affirmation, and simple choices. Fear is the most subtle shadow man must face. It does not spring from truth, but from the false belief that you are alone, abandoned in a cold universe. In that illusion, fear creeps in and builds invisible walls. It makes you forget that you are joined to the inexhaustible source of life, that the flame within you has never gone out. Fear cannot create. It cannot bring forth life. It cannot open the future. It can only freeze daylight and drain your strength. And for that very reason, it is not real. It only grows strong when you feed it your attention. Every time you listen closely to the whispers of doubt, you pour oil into a false flame. Every time you nourish dark visions in your mind, you empower a shadow that has no life of its own. The only way to take back your power from fear is to reclaim attention. Do not fight it. Do not drive it out as an enemy, for in doing so, you secretly affirm its power. Simply return to the breath, to the rhythm of life flowing within you. Speak an affirmation, gentle but resolute, like pure water washing away the dust. Make a small, deliberate choice, stand upright, smile once, bring your thought back to the good. These simple acts withdraw oil from fear and restore it to the true flame within. Fear rarely comes with a roar. It comes in whispers. It wears the mask of reason, telling you to be cautious, to wait, to delay just a little longer. It does not force, it merely suggests, and if you agree, it quietly claims more space in your mind. Yet you can refuse not by shouting, not by panic, but by silent authority. You can say within, this thought is not mine. I choose a higher truth. This is the power of the voice within, not merely a sound in your head, but the inner space you return to, where the light has never left you. Picture fear as a thick fog covering the path. It blurs your sight, makes you feel lost, but the path itself has never vanished. If you keep walking, slowly and steadily, the fog will lift. The truth is still there. The light is still there. As long as you keep moving forward, each mindful breath, each spoken affirmation, each small choice is a step through the fog. And with every step, fear fades while the light grows stronger. The essential truth is this: fear cannot create reality. It can only make you forget reality. It can freeze the flow, but it can never replace the source of life. When you remember this, fear ceases to appear formidable. It is only a sign that you have forgotten your union with the source. And at that moment, instead of trembling, you can return to center, return to the inner flame, where truth waits for you to remember. Each time you withdraw oil from fear, freedom blossoms. One anxious thought may invite 10 more, but one strong affirmation can open a whole new sky. When you tell yourself, I am safe in the source of life, I am sustained by goodness, you do what fear can never do. You create, you sow a new seed, you open the door for light to enter. Fear lives by forgetfulness. Faith lives by remembrance. Each time you choose to remember, even with a single breath, you return the oil to its rightful place. And with each act of remembrance, you see more clearly that fear is but the shadow of illusion. It cannot harm you unless you give it life from yourself. Therefore, treat every appearance of fear not as a failure, but as a reminder. It reminds you that it is time to return to the flame, to the breath, to eternal truth. And when you do, fear grows weak and you grow strong. You do not need to conquer it. You need only to withdraw the oil from it and give it back to the light. And that light, which is your very essence, will blaze, illuminating your path, no matter whether the world outside is night or fog. Forgiveness opens the flow. Asterisk, asterisk, resentment clogs the oil, while forgiveness is the release valve that lets life flow again, including forgiveness towards yourself, which restores clarity to the flame. Resentment is the thickest mud that blocks the current of the soul. It seeps into unhealed wounds, clings to old memories, and gradually obstructs the channels of oil. You may continue to pray, to recite affirmations, to maintain an outer calm. Yet if a stone of bitterness remains in your heart, the stream of life cannot flow freely. The light within you does not dim because the flame is weak, but because the oil has grown blocked, murky, no longer pure enough to burn brightly. Forgiveness is the release valve that opens letting the current flow again. Forgiveness does not deny the hurt or pretend that wrongs never happened, nor does it mean permitting others to continue harming you. Forgiveness is the decision to free the heart from the prison of the past, to stop allowing wounds to govern present energy. In forgiving, you do not change history, but you change the flow in this moment. That flow, clear and pure, once again makes the oil blaze in the inner flame. Without forgiveness, you unwittingly become the keeper of another's flame. You carry their anger. You repeat their offense. And each time you do, you continue pouring your precious oil into the dark fire of memory. But in forgiving, you reclaim that power. You return the oil to its rightful place, to the bright flame of your own being. Forgiveness is not a gift for the other. It is the act of liberation for yourself. Yet the hardest forgiveness is not toward those who hurt you, but towards yourself. How many continue to condemn themselves for wrong decisions, missed opportunities, broken relationships? They hold on to old images as evidence of guilt, preventing the flame from burning in its fullness. But remember, the sacred essence within you is never stained by error. You may falter in action, but the inner essence has never been harmed. To forgive yourself is to accept this truth, to cease fighting the old shadow, to open the valve for the clear oil to flow again, pure and radiant. Forgiveness is also like cleaning the wick of a lamp. A lamp filled with oil cannot burn if the wick is clogged. Resentment is the hardened wick that resists the flame. Forgiveness softens it, allows the oil to soak through, and lets the fire burn steady. Sometimes forgiveness happens quietly, without fanfare, without words declared. Yet its effect shows in the shift of the inner climate. You feel lighter, you breathe deeper, and suddenly the flame shines bright without effort. Forgiveness does not always happen once for all. Some wounds require you to open the valve again and again. Each time you release a little, the flow opens further until one day you realize the heart is wide, the oil is clear, the flame is strong. Do not think yourself a failure if forgiveness must be repeated. Each act of release brings the flame nearer to its inherent brilliance. Resentment traps you in the past. Forgiveness restores you to the present. Resentment keeps the mind replaying old images. Forgiveness frees you to welcome new energy. And when the present is clean, the flame has room to burn, to shine without being veiled by the smoke of memory. Feel the difference. When you cling to resentment, the atmosphere is heavy, the energy is stagnant, and even blessings are blocked at the threshold. When you forgive, the atmosphere clears, the oil flows smoothly, and all good can enter your life naturally. Forgiveness opens the door for life to circulate not only in spirit, but in health, in relationships, in work. Your flame requires pure oil to shine. Forgiveness is the act of cleansing the oil, clearing the atmosphere, throwing open the valve, so that life flows without hindrance. And as the current moves again, you are no longer trapped in the shadows of the past. You stand in the pure light of the present. Forgive others, forgive yourself, and let the flame burn as it was meant to, bright, clear, silent, eternal. The mental atmosphere. Asterisk, asterisk. Your mental atmosphere is something no one can see, yet everyone can feel. It is like a fragrance you give off unseen, yet present everywhere. Others may not hear you speak, but they sense the atmosphere you carry. Even your own body responds to it, your heartbeat, your breath, your nervous system, all follow the mental climate that surrounds you. If it is clear, you feel light. If it is heavy, you feel weary. And it all begins with the thoughts you nurture each day. You may speak affirmations of light, but if your inner climate is soaked with bitterness or worry, your words fall into emptiness. You may smile outwardly, but if your heart churns with judgment, the one before you still feels the tension. Atmosphere cannot be faked. It faithfully reflects the thoughts you entertain. You cannot hide it from your body, nor from the souls of others, for the mental atmosphere is a signal always broadcasting outward. That is why cleansing the mind is as vital as cleansing the body. You would not go out for days without washing your face, yet how often do you let your mind steep in scraps of worry and resentment without cleansing them away? A single negative thought is like dust on glass. Left long enough, it clouds your vision. A stream of negative thinking is like garbage piled up, weighing down the atmosphere, and when the atmosphere is clouded, the inner flame cannot shine with clarity. The oil may be there, but it burns dim. Cleansing the mind does not mean forbidding every negative thought from appearing. Thoughts may arise, but you decide whether they stay. When a negative thought flashes, you may look at it and say, I see you, but you do not belong in this house. Then you gently turn your attention back to a higher thought, to the affirmation you have chosen. This is wiping the glass, so the light may shine through. If you make this a habit, your mental atmosphere becomes a shield. You walk into a room and the air shifts. You speak with someone and they feel more at peace. Even in silence, your presence becomes a reminder, not because you strive to shine, but because the atmosphere you have nurtured within naturally radiates outward. On the other hand, if you neglect the mind, if you let worries repeat unchecked, your atmosphere becomes a burden. Others may not know why, but they feel tense near you. Your body, too, will sound alarms fatigue, illness, because its energy is suffocated. This is not punishment, but simply the law. The mental atmosphere you sustain produces the experience you live. Each day, you must choose some way to cleanse your atmosphere, perhaps a few minutes of silence, perhaps one affirmation, perhaps writing down your gratitude, perhaps only one slow breath given your full attention. These small acts are acts of cleansing, like opening a window for fresh air. And when the atmosphere is clear, the flame bursts bright, lighting the path before you. Watch for a moment in your day when you find the mind sinking into comparison or worry. Do not condemn yourself. Do not suppress. Simply change the channel as you would change a radio station. When you return to truth, when you breathe out and say, I am safe in the source of life, the atmosphere shifts at once. The body, too, responds. The tension eases. The breath grows steady. The key is to recognize that atmosphere never stands still. It is always being fed by what you repeat. If you do not cleanse it deliberately, the world will fill it with noise, and you will breathe the heavy air of your own making. But if you choose, your atmosphere becomes a sanctuary where the flame burns unbroken. The ancients called it the aura. Today, some call it energy. Emmet called it the mental atmosphere. By whatever name, the principle is one: you are the builder of the atmosphere that surrounds you. And within that atmosphere, every event, every relationship, every experience reflects faithfully. Therefore, keeping the mind clean is not merely a private matter, but a responsibility to your life and to the world you touch. The flame within you requires a clear atmosphere to shine, and that begins with refusing to give negative thoughts a home. You may see them arrive, but you do not lodge them. You choose light, you choose truth, you choose peace, and each time you do, your mental atmosphere clears, the oil flows freely, and the flame blazes, guiding you through every dark season from stimulation to transformation. Asterisk, asterisk. There is a subtle trap along the spiritual path, and that is the addiction to inspiration. People chase after clever sayings, videos that stir emotion, or moments of spiritual exaltation. But once the flash of light fades, they return to the same old weariness. Inspiration is like a lightning bolt, brilliant in a moment, awe-inspiring for an instant, yet unable to light the long road ahead. If you live on inspiration alone, you will find yourself craving more and more. As with a stimulant that loses its effect the more it is consumed, leaving only emptiness in the end. Transformation is different. It does not arrive in sudden flashes, but like small drops of rain seeping into dry earth, it unfolds slowly, quietly, often without any particular feeling attached. You only notice it when one day, instead of anger, you find yourself calm. Instead of complaining, you choose silence. Instead of drowning in worry, you return to truth. These moments may not ignite an emotional blaze, but they are the undeniable proof that you are being changed. Addiction to inspiration creates a fog in the mind. You may think you are advancing because you collect quotes, knowledge, and novel experiences, yet in reality, you are only accumulating fragments that never enter your living practice. The result is that the inner flame grows dim, not from lack of oil, but because the oil is mixed with impurities. What you need is not more stimulation, but refinement. The ability to turn one simple truth into a living act. Real transformation begins when truth enters daily speech. You may memorize lofty affirmations, but if in conversation you still utter sharp or bitter words, the light dims. When you choose kind speech, you bring truth into sound. You allow the flame to shine through your voice. Likewise, truth must enter decisions. You may meditate for hours, but its true value is revealed in the choice you make when faced with difficulty. Each decision in favor of honesty, compassion, and integrity purifies the flow of oil. Truth must also enter the subtle habits, not the grand gestures that others praise, but the way you begin the morning, the way you respond when someone irritates you, the way you speak to yourself when you fail. These shape the true structure of your mental atmosphere, and it is in these small, hidden details that transformation occurs. It does not shout. It does not prove itself, yet it is steady and irreversible. When you learn to live from transformation rather than chasing inspiration, life becomes clearer. You no longer wonder whether today you feel uplifted or not. You understand that emotion is but the surface wave, while truth is the underground current. And when the current is strong, the waves may rise and fall, but the flow continues unbroken. This demands patience. Human nature craves quick results, wanting instant outcomes, a ritual, a mantra to solve everything. But truth does not bow to such demands. It seeps in, repeats itself, trains you in endurance. Just as an athlete does not build strength through one thrilling workout, but through months and years of discipline, so the soul grows through what seem like monotonous days of repetition. Look back at your own journey. Perhaps you have felt dry, without strong feelings in your spiritual life. Yet it is in those dry days, when you still chose to practice, to hold to truth, to return in silence, that transformation was happening. That is when the flame learned to burn steadily, independent of the winds. Inspiration Addiction keeps you circling in place, but transformation moves you forward, one sure step at a time. When you cease chasing novelty and instead become faithful to the simple things, you will find the flame blazing from within, not because you heard a powerful phrase, but because you lived it. You let it soak into your speech, your choices, your subtly habits. That is when the fog clears, the light appears. Your flame no longer flickers with the gusts of emotion, but burns steady and strong. And then, the true power does not come from fleeting moments of inspiration, but from the enduring flow of transformation, breaking procrastination. Asterisk. Asterisk procrastination is not merely poor time management. It is a spiritual leak. Each time you know you must act, but say, I will do it tomorrow, you allow the oil to drip away instead of feeding the flame. You still have light, but it fades, it weakens, because the energy has been drained into false promises. Procrastination tricks you into thinking you are in control. But in truth, you are slowly surrendering your authority to stagnation. Its danger lies in the fact that it rarely comes dressed as a threat. It does not shout at you to stop. It whispers with words that sound so reasonable. Not yet. Wait until you are ready. Wait until the mood is right. These whispers persuade you that you are being careful, when in fact you are losing the flow. There is no perfect moment to begin, no ideal mood that arrives and stays. If you wait, you will remain forever in the shadow of a day that never comes. The only way to break the cycle of procrastination is through real action, right now, one small step, one simple gesture. But finite. Open the book you meant to read, write one line on the empty page, stand up and walk a few steps, speak one affirmation aloud. The moment action occurs, the flow is restored, and from that movement, clarity is born. It is not clarity that produces action, but action that produces clarity. Faith operates in the same way. You do not need to see the entire path before you step. You only need to take one step, and the next will appear. Each step is like pouring oil into the flame, and the light expands just enough to reveal the step ahead. If you wait until the whole path is visible, you will never begin. It is motion that shatters the spell of procrastination, for procrastination feeds on stillness. Many imagine they are too weak to start, but strength is not given before the journey. It is forged in the walking. Just as muscles grow only in motion, so faith grows only in action, not in advance. Any step, however small, has the power to shift the mental atmosphere. The flame grows brighter as you prove by action that you are willing. Whenever you feel paralyzed by delay, remember, you do not need to defeat it by sheer willpower. You overcome it with one simple act. Speak one affirmation aloud. Take one conscious breath. Make one small choice in the right direction. This is how you reclaim oil from stagnation and return it to the flame. This is the power of the voice within, not just a sound you hear, but a space you return to when the inner voice becomes your dwelling place. No longer drowned out by the noise of excuses, you return to the center, and from that center action arises naturally. Procrastination makes you believe tomorrow has more power than today. But tomorrow does not exist only now. Only in this moment is oil poured into the lamp. Only now does the flame blaze. If you pour into tomorrow, the lamp dims today, and when the light dims, darkness fills the void with fear, doubt, and exhaustion. You cannot sustain the flame with empty promises to the future. You can only nourish it with oil poured now. Do not let procrastination deceive you with its cloak of reason. See it as the leak it is, and end it with one real action, a single step gives you more power than 1,000 unfulfilled plans. And once you step, the cycle of delay shatters, the flame receives fresh oil, the light bursts forth, and the road opens ahead. Strength does not come from dreaming, but from stepping. Clarity does not come from endless analysis, but from a single real choice. The flame does not live on the promise of tomorrow, but on the oil of today. So do not ask yourself if you are ready. Do one small thing now. From that act, the flow will return. Life will circulate, and the light will guide your way. The dry season and gestation. Asterisk, asterisk. There are seasons when your familiar practice feels barren to the point of discomfort. The affirmations no longer echo. The breath brings no freshness. The silence feels like a void without meaning. Instead of connection, you feel only emptiness. Many assume this is failure, a sign they have lost faith, but in truth, it is an inevitable stage, like the earth resting, before it brings forth a new season. The dry season is not death, it is gestation. In that stage, nothing may appear to change outwardly, yet inwardly the roots are driving deeper into the soil. The tree shows no leaves, but its roots are expanding, preparing for the next season of growth. Your soul also retreats into silence, not to abandon you, but to deepen. If you remain faithful, sitting with the silence and allowing it to be what it is, you will discover a new dimension of strength, not the thrill of surface excitement, but the quiet endurance of energy that does not depend upon feeling. In the dry season, the greatest challenge is loyalty. Without the encouragement of sensation, you may believe you are wasting time, but if you leave, you will never see the fruit ripened by this hidden season. It is precisely when you feel nothing that your loyalty becomes the purest oil. You keep sowing though the ground is dry. You keep praying though the mind is empty. You keep silent though the heart feels no comfort. And it is this persistence that opens the living spring within. Sitting with silence is an art. People often fear silence, thinking it the absence of something, but silence is not absence. Silence is presence in its purest form. If you are patient enough not to run from it, you will discover that within the stillness flows a hidden river, slow, deep, unglamorous, but it is the source. It is there. The flame is nourished when nothing outside sustains it. The dry season also tests your ability to distinguish between feeling and truth. Feelings may vanish, but truth has never left. When you grasp this, you no longer measure your practice by how you feel. You see that feelings are flowers on the branch, but truth is the root sunk deep in the earth. And when the root is strong enough, the flowers will return, more radiant than before. Spiritual gestation takes place in these quiet intervals. You may see nothing, yet life is forming. As a child grows in the womb, unseen, cell by cell, day by day, so does the soul develop in secret. You cannot hasten it. You only need to remain faithful, giving it the space to do its work. And in time, life will reveal itself clear and undeniable. Do not mistake dryness for distance. God has not withdrawn. The source has not disappeared. Only the temporary layer of feeling has been withdrawn, that you may learn to trust something deeper. This is a lesson no one can learn for you. You may hear 1,000 teachings, but only when you yourself sit in the dryness and still choose loyalty do you truly enter depth. The dry season also trains you to let go of control. You cannot force the soul to bloom on your timetable. You can only be patient, keep the soil clean, and trust that life within is working. When you cease demanding instant results, you learn surrender. And in surrender, the flame burns again without your striving. Everyone who has walked through such a season has thought themselves lost. But looking back, they see it was one of the most precious times. For in the emptiness, they learned to distinguish between the false and the true, the fleeting and the enduring. They learned to love silence not as punishment, but as a secret chamber where the soul is nourished. So if you are now in a dry season, take heart. Do not rush to fill the emptiness with fresh distractions. Do not think that the void is the end. See it as gestation, as a sign that deeper life is being prepared. Sit with the silence. Stay faithful to your practice, even when you feel nothing. For it is loyalty in the days without feeling that produces the brightest season of blossoms for the flame within you, the furnace of crisis. Asterisk, asterisk. There are times when life hurls you into a violent storm, where everything familiar dissolves in an instant. A sudden diagnosis, a broken relationship, a dream that abruptly ends. In such moments, it feels as if the ground beneath your feet has vanished. You pray, but your prayers return as hollow echoes. You search for meaning, but find only darkness. Many believe this is the death of faith. But in truth, it is the furnace of crisis, where faith is refined into its purest essence. In the fire of trial, all that is superficial is burned away. Beliefs borrowed from others, words memorized but never made flesh and blood, illusions of an easy path, all of it collapses. What remains is what you truly cling to, when there is no evidence left outside, when every support disappears. You stand in the void with a single question: what do I still believe? And in that very moment, the inner flame bursts forth in a way no circumstance can extinguish. Pain and loss do not destroy faith. They strip off the false layers so that true faith can emerge. When you are left with nothing but the presence of the source of life, you discover that your strength does not come from comfort, but from loyalty to truth. A single affirmation whispered in the dark holds more power than 1,000 words spoken in peace. A decision to remain silent rather than lash out brings you closer to the light than any grand ceremony. In the furnace of crisis, you learn to live by the substance of honesty. There is no room for pretense, no space for polished phrases. There is only you, your pain, and the truth. And from there, the flame is fed by oil that cannot be faked, oil pressed from endurance, patience, and courage. If you look back on the most painful turning points of your life, you will see that it was precisely those moments that gave you a depth peace could not. They forced you to understand yourself more clearly, to stop and discern what is real from what is mere shell. They trained you to stand firm without needing everything around you to agree, and from that place you emerged with a flame brighter, stronger, more enduring. Let me ask you something now, something simple yet deeply important. Have you ever faced a blow so severe you thought you could not rise again, but in the end it made you stronger? If you have, write a short line in the comments, so I know you are present and walking this journey alongside me. Thank you for your courage to listen, for the very fact that you are here, still seeking light, proves that the flame within you has never gone out. Crisis is not a sentence. It is a furnace. It has not come to kill you, but to free you from what is false. It does not come to prove you are weak, but to reveal a strength you never knew you had. And once you have passed through that fire, you will never see life the same again. You will know that true faith does not rest on how much evidence you can see, but on the fact that you still choose to stand when no evidence remains. That is the light that cannot be quenched. That is the flame you carry for the rest of the journey. presence that leads, asterisk, asterisk, when the flame within you has steadied. No longer flickering in the wind, you become the quiet room in a noisy house. You no longer strive to prove yourself strong. You no longer need grand words to persuade others, for your very presence is the evidence whoever enters that space senses a different climate, not tense, not chaotic, but a steady rhythm that causes them to settle, to breathe easier. Though they may not know why, this is the silent authority of presence. You no longer rely on persuasion, for the energy within you carries more weight than any argument. A gentle word from you may bear more power than a long speech, because it comes from silence, from a flame that has been refined, even without words. The way you sit, the way you listen, the way you breathe is enough to guide. Others may not hear sound, but they feel the atmosphere you carry. In a world clamoring for attention, quiet presence becomes a rare magnet. People do not realize it, but they are drawn to the safety of that energy. They may not agree with you, may not understand you, may even oppose you, but they cannot deny the steadiness that radiates. That steadiness does not come from outer power, but from having sat with silence, having endured the dry season, having been refined in the furnace of crisis. The one who leads by presence does not impose. They do not need to prove themselves right, nor pull others to their side. They simply stand in truth, and the truth itself shines. Light never argues with darkness. It simply shines, and the darkness withdraws. When your flame is steady, you are no longer caught in the struggle to win over another. You simply are, and that presence is enough for others to see themselves more clearly. This is not pride, but deep humility. For, you are not leading from ego, but from the current of life flowing through you. You no longer strive to control, but simply keep the atmosphere clear so the flame may burn. And from there, you become a landmark, a breeze, a lamp to those who have lost their way. They do not need you to hold their hand. They need only to see your flame. And it reminds them that they too have a flame within. You may never know the full impact of such presence. You pass through life holding peace in a difficult moment, and someone nearby feels comfort. You choose honesty over short-term gain, and a silent witness learns a lesson. You listen instead of judging, and your listening opens a door for another to reflect. There is no imposition, no persuasive strategy, only a presence clear enough to illuminate. This is leadership unlike what the world often celebrates. It carries no title, needs no stage, demands no recognition. It is the quiet flame that shines, not seeking honor, yet warming all who draw near, and its strength endures beyond any outer power, for it does not depend on numbers, but on inner fidelity. When you become the still room in a noisy house, you no longer seek validation. Your presence is enough. You do not pull others to your side, but those who are ready will come. You do not fight the darkness, but the light you carry leaves no place for it to remain. This is how the steady flame leads, not by force, not by argument, but by the undeniable truth of the atmosphere you create. And then you understand that the goal is not to become a grand figure, but to become the quiet space through which light is revealed. You live simply, but that simplicity carries an invisible power. You need not make others believe. You need only remain faithful to the flame within, and that faithfulness becomes a silent invitation, strong and sure, to all who are still searching for their way. Prosperity is the law of flow, asterisk. Asterisk prosperity is not a rare gift reserved for the fortunate few. It is the law of flow. Just as water finds its way to the low places, just as light pours through an open window, prosperity always seeks an opening. It does not play favorites. It does not discriminate. It does not ration itself. The only factor that determines whether you experience it or not is the openness of your mind and heart. When consciousness is still burdened with fear and guilt, you erect walls that block the flow. You may pray, desire, work yourself to exhaustion, but if inwardly you still believe you are unworthy, the current of prosperity will be diverted. True supply is not possession. You may own much and still live in lack because the mind is closed, afraid of losing, clinging, hoarding. On the other hand, you may live in simplicity, yet feel fullness because the mind is open, unbound by thoughts of scarcity. Prosperity is not measured by quantity, but by openness. When you open, life flows through you. When you close, it stops. This is an unchanging principle, independent of markets, of people, of luck. Fear and guilt are the two great locks that shut the gates of prosperity. Fear convinces you that if you gain, someone else must lose. It tells you that life is a competition, that supply is finite. But the truth is that life is infinite, and prosperity is a river that never runs dry. Guilt makes you punish yourself, afraid to receive, unable to rejoice in blessing. You think you must pay, must suffer in order to deserve. Such false beliefs cloud the oil within you, dimming the flame that longs to burn bright. When consciousness is cleansed of fear and guilt, you realize that receiving prosperity is not selfish, but part of divine order. You become a channel, allowing life to flow through you, nourishing you and radiating outward. When you are full, you can give freely. When you are open, others are blessed by the light of your flame. This is true supply, not hoarding, but circulation. Prosperity flows in straight lines, no detours. Nudsait required. You need not compromise with darkness in order to live abundantly, for the source never lacks. If you find yourself in lack, look within and ask what belief is blocking the flow. Perhaps it is the fear that you are not good enough, or the belief that you must suffer to be worthy. Remove those barriers, and you will see life flowing naturally, without strain. Prosperity is not a special state, but the reflection of your mental atmosphere. When you consistently choose clear thoughts, when you refuse to host ideas of lack, the atmosphere becomes pure and the stream of life flows in. This is the harmony between inner and outer. Instead of begging for more, you simply open and allow. And when you allow, prosperity appears not only in money, but in health, in relationships, in joy. True wealth does not come to bind you, but to free you. It grants you choice without fear. It offers you the chance to give without dread of loss. It makes your flame burn brighter, for now you have more oil to feed both yourself and others. But this wealth endures only when it follows the law of flow, when you receive without clinging and give without calculation. Remember, a flame does not need a storehouse of oil to live. It only needs oil poured steadily, purely, without interruption. Likewise, you do not need vast reserves to feel prosperous. You need only to live in circulation. This is the art of living with the infinite source. You no longer clutch in fear of loss, nor refuse in guilt, but let the current pass through, trusting the source is always fresh, always full. Whenever you feel resistance to prosperity, return to the center, and listen to the voice within. This is the power of voice within. Not just a sound you hear, but a space you return to. In that space, you are reminded you are not cut off from the source. You have never been abandoned, and you have the right to open and let life flow in that return. Fear dissolves, guilt fades, and in their place rises the clarity and lightness of a free river. Prosperity is the law of flow. You need not grasp. You need not chase. You only need to open. And when you open, life pours in bringing light, bringing joy, bringing the freedom your soul has always longed for. Sacred rhythm and gentle discipline. Asterisk, asterisk. The true strength of faith is not found in bursts of emotion, but in the rhythm of returning day after day. That rhythm is like a quiet drumbeat, steadying your steps, whether the world outside is noisy or still. Many mistake faith as something proven only in exalted moments, radiant experiences, but in truth its value is measured by stability, by the pattern of loyalty you sustain in the ordinary breath of daily life. Faith is a sacred rhythm, and rhythm requires repetition. You return not because every time feels new, but because you know that only repetition builds endurance. Just as a river wears down stone, not by a single surge, but by constant flow through the years, faith wears down doubt, fear, and wavering not by one act of courage, but by thousands of gentle returns. Discipline in faith is not harsh compulsion. It is the gentleness of one who knows they must return. This discipline does not make you rigid, it makes you supple. For every time you come back to the affirmation, the breath, the silence, you remind yourself that the center is still there. You do not need to feel something special to know you live in truth. You need only to continue, and that continuation is the loudest testimony of all. There are days when you sit down and feel empty, yet if you still choose to practice, to open the book, to speak the affirmation, then that day becomes a seed, not because it excites you, but because it keeps the rhythm unbroken. A chain of steady beats produces greater strength than any single burst. When storms come, it is that rhythm that holds you steady, like a tree whose roots have been trained deep by the winds. Faith does not seek climax. It seeks constancy. One who lives only on strong feelings will collapse when feelings fade. But one who maintains rhythm, who returns gently, carries a flame that never goes out. That flame need not blaze to be real. It need only burn steady, day after day, without interruption. Gentle discipline is when you do not whip yourself, yet you do not let yourself drift either. You hold to the rhythm, not too tight, not too loose, like a musician tuning strings, not too taut, not too slack. That rhythm gives you strength to stand firm, yet keeps you flexible enough to adapt. When you live in that gentle discipline, faith becomes as natural as breath, not forced, not displayed, but steady. Faith practiced in rhythm is never wasted. A single affirmation repeated for years, a quiet minute each morning, a habit of forgiveness each night. These form the sacred music of your life. And that music purifies your mental atmosphere, gives the flame oil to burn without ceasing. Others may not see it, but your presence will shift. For stability always creates a silent magnetism. You do not need perfection to hold the rhythm. You may miss a day, but you return. You may be distracted, but you refocus. The essence of rhythm is continual return. It is not that you never fall out of step, but that you refuse to stay out of step. You always come back, and the coming back becomes quicker, more natural each time. This is how faith becomes gentle discipline. neither harsh nor extreme, yet strong and unyielding. Remember, the universe does not measure you by intensity of emotion, but by consistency. One faithful to small practices will travel farther than one who always seeks excitement. For in the end, faith is not a mountaintop moment, but the steady heartbeat that keeps the spiritual life alive. And when you learn to live in that sacred rhythm, you will find your strength no longer depends on circumstance, but becomes a flowing current that carries you through every season of life. The crystallization of loyalty. Asterisk, asterisk. The flame does not sustain itself by brief bursts of fire, but by the quiet loyalty of a hand that keeps pouring oil. It is loyalty, not emotional highs, that ensures the light never goes out. You do not need to always feel inspired. You do not need to always soar. You need only to keep pouring oil, to keep the flame alive. This is the silent strength, the secret of endurance, the crystallization of a life bound to truth. Loyalty means you remain with the practice even when it brings no special feeling. Loyalty means you hold to the affirmation even when no result is visible. Loyalty means you return to silence even in the midst of storms. This is not rigidity, but the steadiness of one who knows the truth is always worth holding. The flame does not ask if you feel like it. It only asks for oil, and oil comes only through repeated acts of loyalty. A life nourished by loyalty gradually becomes a lamp. You do not need to prove. You do not need to shout for the world to notice your light. Your steadiness, your constant presence speaks for itself. A dark room needs only one lamp to be different. So too, in a chaotic world, one person loyal to the light within becomes a sign of peace for those lost. Loyalty carries a special power. It crystallizes into atmosphere. People do not see the oil you pour each day, do not hear the affirmations whispered, do not witness the moments you choose forgiveness over bitterness. Yet all these acts accumulate into an invisible atmosphere. When you enter a space, that atmosphere radiates. When you speak, your voice carries weight. When you are silent, your silence is not empty, but full. That is the fruit of loyalty, and nothing can replace it. A life lived as a lamp becomes proof that peace is not theory, but reality. People see it in the way you handle adversity, in the way you remain quiet instead of reacting, in the way you keep walking when many have given up. The light you carry is not to impose, but to prove that truth can be lived, not just spoken. The crystallization of loyalty is a lasting presence, no longer swayed by fleeting emotions, no longer tossed by praise or challenge. You become one whose very presence is a lesson, a silent invitation, and thus you do not only keep the flame for yourself, you become a source of light for others to find their way. Faith is not measured by explosions, but by the rhythm of loyalty. You may have had radiant moments, but it is the quiet daily return that proves real strength. A lamp does not shine by lightning strikes, but by steady oil. Your life is the same, built not on fleeting feelings, but on loyalty crystallized through years. Let your life become a lamp, burning not to impress, but because that is its nature. In living so, you no longer seek peace, for you are peace. You no longer search for light, for you are light. And such presence, sustained, becomes a living testimony that the flame never dies as long as loyalty keeps pouring oil. When loyalty crystallizes, your life becomes a song without words, a light without explanation. Others may not understand with their minds, but they will feel with their hearts that here is truth, here is peace, and you, in silence, will have fulfilled your mission not with noise, but with the quiet steadfastness that kept the flame burning throughout the journey. After all, you will realize the flame has never left you. It waits for your return, waits for you to pour oil through small but faithful choices. No outbursts are needed. No display is required. Only steadiness and truth. Live as a lamp, so that your very presence becomes a sign of peace and light. And when that light is steady, you no longer need to search for you. Yourself have become the answer.